Hello to all my friends out there. Hi, you guys. I hope everyone is doing okay. The weather is nice out here. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's just right. So, I want to do two shout outs. One to Bear Pantry. You guys go to Bear Pantry and follow her. The crux of the channel is if your pantry is bare, God forbid. And the other one is Homestead Tessie Mobile Home Living. Okay, what happened was, I think during the real estate crash, she found herself in debt. And so what she did is she reduced her living way down so she could survive and thrive. So that is well worth pursuing as well. Now, in myself, I make no sense unless you know I live in Southern California. And I was a hairdresser all my life, and I retired. And my idea was to sell junk at the swap meet, and that was what I was going to do when I retired, and I still am. So all these clothes you see me wear, I bought these to sell them, and I will sell them. But in the meantime, I'm wearing them in my videos, and all this jewelry, I will sell it. I will sell it cheap. And so I bought tons of jewelry, junk jewelry, and junk does describe it. But it's easy to sell. Like these bracelets are super cute. When I used to go to the swap meet, the girls would put these. Now, if you can find these love bead type bracelets, they're very easy to find. The girls would put the stuff on, and they would look so darned adorable, and I sold lots of it. So what I did today is I got up and I said, I will find some yeast. What? I might need some yeast. I drove all over this town, and I can't tell you how many stores I went to, and I didn't find any yeast. None. And I thought, wow, this is not good. You know, when I needed flour, when I needed toilet paper, I was able to find it. But this bread yeast, no. And I haven't been able to find it for a while. And that is very upsetting. Okay, in my life, if I had problems, I would just work 2 and 3 jobs and go to school, and I would get school money, and I would get my way through the problems. And it's not so easy this day. If your job is non-essential, you might want to be thinking about getting an essential job, because they're probably going to eliminate non-essentials and employ yourself somehow, like my swap meet, like my eBay, like my YouTube. You don't have to. On YouTube, your channel can be successful if you have something to say, and most women do. So, okay, it's not always possible to push your way through the problems, but what has happened to me in my life is when I would do everything I possibly could do to the point that I was exhausted, I got home and I was praying, and I thought, God, what in the hell are we supposed to do with no yeast? You know, I did one yeast recipe, but it had some yeast into it. And the thought popped into my mind, and I told you guys, this is how the minister said my ex-husband would speak to me, and he does. But also, for a lot of us, just an idea will pop into your mind, and that's God speaking to you. And what popped into my mind is, there's yeast in this stuff. Mind you, we don't have any yeast. If this works, and I don't know if it will, you might want to wait until tomorrow. Okay, so here is my bread starter. This stuff requires a certain amount of yeast, and I'm thinking, well, what if we don't have any yeast? And this popped into my mind. So I had 1/2 cup of that pizza mix, and I could smell the yeast in it. And I didn't add yeast, because I do have some, but what if we didn't have some? 1 tablespoon sugar, 1/2 cup water, and I made sure my container was warm and my water was warm, and 1 a potato. Now, if you have yeast, it activates overnight. So, what I did to see if I could speed it up is, let me see if I can get this out. I put 1 pan of boiling hot water, because this is how I make my yogurt. And then I put my my yeast starter made with, and it's looking good. I cannot, this is like one of those things, you know, when people would say I was lucky. Okay, you guys, take a look at this. See the yeast on top of there? So I have hopes that it's going to be ready by tomorrow morning. So possibly there was just enough yeast in that pizza bread starter. And then I should be able to get at least 2 batches. So I just happen to have this in my stockpile. So try to get some of this, or you might already have some of this. So, okay, so, but that isn't the first thing that occurred to me. I thought, well, I guess I'm just going to have to make baking soda biscuits. Well, I went to find my recipe, and I found the fry bread. And I go, yeah, this is what people do when they don't have any yeast. They don't go, oh, woe is me. Look in the lady, Opal Burkhart, San Diego. Fry bread. So I am going to make a little batch. I'm just going to make a little one, because what I'm trying to do is I am only trying to make as much, whatever the food is that I possibly need. So I have some little bags of flour, and so I want to use those up. So I didn't take my measuring cup. So I'm just going to make 1 cup. So, you know, I've seen videos on this, and I thought, yeah, okay, so, well, yeah, it is a big deal if you don't have any yeast. It's a real big deal. But the funny thing about this is when they make it, they never mention the fact is this is good if you don't have any yeast. Okay, so now on my mom's side, they were ranchers, and they went to town once a year. And the ranch hands would get drunk and carry on for a week, and then they would go back to the ranch penniless. But in the meantime, when you sold your cattle, you had to get provisions for the whole year. My dad's side was farmers, so you had to make sure you had provisions so you didn't starve out before the next year. So, you know, so I have 1 cup flour, and I need, now this is important. I will find this. Baking powder. Let me make sure it is baking powder. Yes. Not baking soda. So, how much is this? So I'm making a quarter batch, so it'd be 1. This is easy to make in a smaller amount. And 1 teaspoon salt. So say a 1/4 teaspoon salt. I like this because you can make it in a small batch. And tomorrow I will make the bread, and you guys will see what happens. I'm pretty sure it's going to be successful just by the way it's already going. So on anything like this, you've got to stir it good so that you get your baking powder mixed up good, because if you get a big bite of baking powder, it's really going to be bad. This is kind of like biscuits, kind of. So what we have to do is, if we're smart, we have to like address problems as they come up, you know, so that we're not caught somehow without resources. So I shopped, you guys saw me shop around for shortening. It's getting expensive. I think we're going to experience hyperinflation and price gouging. Well, I can guarantee you. Okay, so now I have about an 1/8 cup of shortening. You can use any kind of fat, any kind of lard you have. Butter, whatever you have. I don't know about oil for this. I don't know about that. And another thing that might be smart is to start saving all of your meat drippings and all of your oil, you know. So now I just want to cut this into my flour. A pastry cutter would be super duper, but I don't have one, so you know, hey. I try to let my shortening get room temperature, because then it's going to be easier to cut into my flour. This is the same way I make biscuits. Yes, it is a little hot here in the kitchen, but not as hot as it has been the last few nights, but not exactly cool either. Another good thing about this is it's just going to take a minute to make it. And another thing good about this is, what if you don't have $1 for a loaf of bread? What if your neighbor will give you some flour and some shortening and some, you know, I wouldn't want my neighbors starving if they needed some flour. I really wouldn't. Or some food. If you guys have extra food, it might be nice to give it some to the food pantry. But you know what I think? I think it's going to get much worse. So, you know. Okay, so now let me take off my rings. And these are cute. They're easy to sell. When the time is right. Okay, so now I want to add milk. So what I have is I have some evaporated milk, 1/2 evaporated milk and 1/2 water. You could use coffee creamer, 1/3 cup coffee creamer to 1 cup warm. I stockpile coffee creamer just for that reason. Okay, so see how my... Okay, so I think I'm gonna use the well method. So by using the well method, what you can do is you can wet your dough. That's gonna give you a good dough, a nice soft dough. That's all we're trying to do here. So I just wanna mix my, I don't wanna really stir it, I really wanna wet it. This is the same thing with any kind of biscuits. And then, you know, just pour the milk around on the part that's not a dough. And what will happen is it will form into a soft dough when you get the right amount of milk in there. And what I'm going to do is I am going to make some nice small, this one, the recipe calls for 4 doughs with 4 cups, and that would be a lot. But what I want to do is I want to make kind of little ones, because I'm not experienced. I'm an experienced bread maker, but not an experienced fry bread maker. Okay, so see, my dough is not ready because it's not a soft dough. So what I want to do is just keep adding a little milk, I mean very little, until I create a soft dough. I think some Indian, you're not from India, but Indians from the Wild Wild West Indians would make fry bread. In our family, it was always bread with yeast, never once thinking there's not going to be any yeast. So now there's another bad possibility that I thought of today. This no toilet paper, no flour, no bread type problems is just to distract us from the recession, possible depression, possible famine coming. So what we want to do is, see now how my dough is like a little ball of dough? I think that's about right. So what we want to say to ourselves, do you remember at 9/11 they said don't leave your desk, everything will be okay? Huh. Don't panic, people. A food shortage, a food scarcity is on the way. The government will take care of you. Well, yeah, I hope so, but what if it doesn't work out that way? Okay. Remember yesterday, the seeing is believing thing? So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get a nice little, okay, I'm just going to make small ones, like little flying saucer type doughs. More experienced of these, you know, I've seen them done before. They make larger ones. But it's been my experience that even when you're making pancakes, I think that's good. Ah, my fat is good. So I will make 4 of these. That's enough. That's enough for me for tonight and tomorrow morning. So I had this thing in the morning. I eat cereal, but usually I eat the cereal in the middle of the night. But this would be good for some peanut butter sandwiches or some gravy, you know. All right, so now. And to go on them, I have some butter and some honey. You want to stockpile butter and honey. God forbid. But if you have heavy cream, you can make butter in your blender. This is good. A lot of things can be made on a barbecue or a hot plate. I will post this on my Twitter. I try to put all the recipes on there. There's a lot of good videos on there, you guys. So all you need is flour, baking powder, salt, shortening, milk, and fat for frying. So if there's anything cheap that can be done, we want to do it. Now let's see what's happening here. Oh, it's looking good already. Mine are kind of like a pancake. Also, I'm trying to keep my dough, I'm trying to keep my the use of my shortening as a small amount as I can, because what if we run out of shortening? Then what? Oh, they're looking good. Look. See how fast these are going? You know, if there's no bread, it's no time to be splitting hairs if we need bread, you know? Well, I'm going to have to sacrifice a few of my napkins. I'll probably never get over that no toilet paper thing. Never, never, never. That was a nightmare. Okay, so we got the, all right. George Washington defeated the British against all odds. You've heard me say that before. That's why I think we'll be successful against the coronavirus. If the Americans are smart, and it looks like they're being pretty smart around here, then possibly we'll never have a terrible second wave. George Washington defeated the British against all odds in the Revolutionary War. While he lost more battles than he won, Washington employed a winning strategy that included victories at the Battle of Trenton and Newtown. That was the beginning of our country. You know these prophets that say America is doomed, we're all sold out to Satan and we're doomed. I disagree. I disagree totally. Further, that is defeatist thinking. Let's see if one's ready. The best way is to cut it open and take a look. I think he can use another minute or two. But it's getting close, you guys. So you can see these are made in minutes. Okay. One of the reasons that I think that America is not doomed is because we're strong allies to Israel. And God says their enemies are our enemies, and you know, we're their strong allies. So that's Christian as well. A lot of people don't view the Christian religion in the same way, so you know, that's just the way I think about it. So breakfast, cereal, milk, or egg and cheese burrito, or pancakes and eggs. These would be good with some eggs for sure. Lunch, sandwich, cookies, or cupcakes and tea. Dinner, soup, bread, meat, potatoes, vegetables, rice. Okay, so that is that. Okay, now I want to give you 2 recipes that I want you guys to have. Learn how to make this stuff. It's the last thing you do. That way you won't be dairy deficient. It's really easy to make. Okay, now let's take a look at this one. Hey. When they start popping up. Okay, you guys, take a look at this. Now if my, this one's ready too. Now if my starter is successful, and it's probably going to be, then, you know, all we have to do is stockpile baking powder. They taste good. So I don't want my followers suffering all kinds of needless stress and hell, you know. What we're going to do is we're going to find solutions to these problems so that we don't suffer. And then, you know, there's big containers of honey to get as well. This one was only $2. This is a good, I got this at 99 cents only. If you have honey, you can use that in your bread making if you don't have sugar. And honey is pretty much, lasts forever and ever and ever. Okay, this'll do. We will be fine because God will provide us a way. Okay, now let me try these. And if this doesn't taste good, I'm going to tell you it's awful. I hate it. My mouth is watering. Those would be perfect with some scrambled eggs. If you can, buy 60 eggs at the first of the month. Write this one in your notebooks. Stockpile butter or margarine. I couldn't find margarine one day at Walmart. Honey. Oh, box of oats. I found big bags of oatmeal at Smart and Final for $14. Coconut. I usually don't add wheat germ. Nuts and raisins if you can. Okay, so now. Okay, now I want to talk about, when problems come up. Okay, what happens is when people get overwhelmed by the problems, they don't do anything because it's stressful. It's like if you don't do anything, it's stressful. If you do anything, it's stressful, and it can be dangerous. So the idea is to approach these problems while they're still small. During the Spanish flu, it was 10 years until the Great Depression, so we have time to prepare, and hopefully there's no really bad recession, but I think this is a recession, and hopefully it doesn't go into a full-blown depression, but it looks like the viral infection went worldwide, and strongly possible that the depression could be worldwide. We could be affected by every country all around us. So we want to prepare little by little. I mean, even if it's a small bag of flour or some honey or, and prepare for hyperinflation, saying, okay, if things do hyperinflate, how am I going to get by? Well, you're going to go to Homestead Tessie Mobile Home Living and learn how she does the garden and stuff. And then try to find big bags, like even once or twice a month is really going to help you. Like those big bags of oatmeal, big bags of flour, sugar, big bags of rice, big bags of beans. So for a start, you would want to get, doesn't have to be big bags. Flour, yeast, but if you don't have yeast, you can use baking powder. Potatoes, you're not going to starve out if you have potatoes and eggs, if you have potatoes and bacon. Big bag of potatoes, big bag of rice, sweet potatoes. Those aren't absolutely necessary, but it sure is nice to round out your stockpile. Milk, that is kind of totally and completely necessary. I think the best one is evaporated milk. I mean, if it came down to it, that was all the milk you had, that would be the good way to go, but it's more expensive than powdered milk. But it's more durable, and it can be used for barter. Meat fat, you want to save all your meat fat, all your shortening, and all your oil. Just save it. Maybe you'll never, I hope you never need it. But if you do need to fry some bread and you save some fat, it's really going to help you out. And then just use small amounts of fat, the smallest amount you possibly can, and start looking for cheaper solutions. And when you've exhausted every solution, like today, okay, if I hadn't said to myself, oh my gosh, there's no yeast, I've been on this yeast thing for a couple weeks, chances are I wouldn't have, I'd just be sitting here so nervous and such a wreck. So if you exhaust every resource you have, then possibly God is going to speak to you somehow, like how to find a job or how to make some starter. I can't believe it. This stuff is really, I ought to give you one more shot of this stuff. By tomorrow, I think it's going to be more than ready. This is unbelievable, you guys. Take a look at this. This is some good-looking, unbelievably good-looking starter. The potato starch really helps too. Also, if you have beer, I think beer would work, but I can't keep any beer. My son and I agreed it probably wasn't a good idea for me to have any alcohol, but I think beer or hops would work really good as well. I tried to find brewer's yeast, and there isn't any in the whole flippin' town. Okay, you guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Nice comments, nice helpful comments. If you have some like bread starter recipes or comments that you could possibly leave us, that is really going to help somebody. That's stressful. Also, I want to say, What has to happen is we can't sit around and say it's going to go back to the way it was. No, we have to say, okay, this is the way it is now. If I don't have any food, it seems that the government wants me to get the food from them. Go to the pantries, go to the churches, go to the welfare, and don't sit in your house. Ask the neighbors, do whatever you have to do, and start stockpiling little by little by little. There was a good comment by one of the followers who said she was just buying too. Oh, and Jan from New York City has a little stockpile going that I thought was really good. One thing I saw in her stockpile is 2 gallons of vinegar. Why is that good? Because you can use that if the water should become contaminated. You can boil your water, you can put a little vinegar in your water. Best though to drink, best to drink bottled water. Everybody takes a different approach to the stockpile. And don't be closed-minded, keep your mind open for good ideas, and God bless you all.